I see you, I appreciate you, and I'm thankful you subscribed and keep showing up. This space is built on your insights. Leave your thoughts and lessons below. Now cue the tension, cue the truth, let's get into it. If you ever feel tempted to ignore a strange look on your partner's face because you do not want to seem paranoid, pay attention anyway. In this story, the biggest clue was not a text message or lipstick or anything dramatic. It was a reaction. A person who expects you home does not freeze when you walk in. A person who is counting on your absence does. That is a decision point a lot of us miss because we are trying to be mature. Sometimes maturity is asking one more question and staying in the room long enough to hear the answer. If you have ever ignored a bad feeling just to keep the peace, this story is going to hit hard. Before we start, tell me in the comments, what was the first red flag you noticed? And if you like real relationship stories with truth, consequences, and no sugarcoating like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe for more stories like this. You did not leave? My wife asked in the kitchen doorway, one hand still on the refrigerator handle, the other clutching a dish towel, like it was keeping her balanced. Her voice came out too high, too fast. I had my duffel bag on my shoulder, rain still on my jacket, and the smell of diesel from Penn Station clinging to me. I set the bag down by the hall table and said, "Trip canceled." I meant to sound casual. Instead, my own voice sounded like somebody else's, flat and careful. She froze hard enough that the ice maker humming behind her suddenly felt loud. It was late October in Baltimore, one of those gray Saturdays where the sky hangs low over row houses, and the air smells like wet leaves and old brick. I was supposed to be on the train to Philadelphia for a 3-day transit systems training. I had kissed Nia on the cheek at 6:30, rolled my suitcase over our uneven front steps, and even texted her a picture from the station. Then I doubled back when a message came from my supervisor. Power issue at yard. Training postponed. Need you Monday instead. Normal work chaos. Nothing dramatic. I did not think I was walking into the exact center of my marriage. Nia blinked twice, then smiled, but it was the wrong smile. Too many teeth. Canceled? Why? She asked, already moving, already turning her body sideways like she needed to block my view into the kitchen. Nia was never clumsy in her movements. She was precise, the kind of woman who lined up spice jars by height and folded bath towels into clean rectangles. But in that moment, she knocked a spoon onto the floor, stooped to pick it up, knocked it again, and said, "I was just making breakfast." There were 2 mugs on the counter. Only one of them was mine. I noticed the second mug before I noticed anything else because it was my grandmother's church fundraiser mug from 1997, the one with faded gold lettering that said New Hope Baptist Women's Auxiliary. Nobody used that mug except family. Nia hated it because the handle was chipped. It sat in the back cabinet most days. Seeing it out wet, with steam still curling up, hit me weirdly. Not proof of anything, just a detail that did not fit. I looked at her, then at the hallway mirror. My chest tightened. "We got company?" I asked. She laughed once. No warmth in it. No. I made tea and coffee because I could not decide what I wanted, she said too quickly. Nia always drank coffee first, tea at night. Every single day we had lived together. I knew that the way I knew she hummed when she graded papers and twisted her wedding band when she was tired. The lie was tiny, almost nothing, but I felt it slide between us like a blade. I heard a floorboard creak upstairs. We both heard it. Nia's eyes moved toward the staircase and back to me, and then I knew this was not my imagination. I made a decision right there that could have gone another way. I could have stormed upstairs, kicked doors open, and turned my own house into a scene. I wanted to. I really did. My ears were hot, and my hands were shaking under my jacket sleeves. But my father used to say, a loud man usually gives away the only advantage he has. So I stayed still. I took off my coat. I hung it on the hook. I said, "Who is upstairs, Nia?" Not yelling, just asking. Her throat moved when she swallowed. "Miles, listen," she started, and then a man I had known for 7 years came down my stairs in socks, carrying his shoes in one hand. Derek Boone, my cousin by marriage. If you trace the family tree through my Aunt Rochelle's husband's people, not close enough to be my blood. clothes enough to be in my house on holidays. He was 38, broad-shouldered, always smelling like cedar beard oil and peppermint gum, and he coached JV basketball at Frederick Douglass High. He looked at me the way people look at traffic accidents. Shocked, guilty, and annoyed to be caught in public. "Man," Derek said, like that one word could build a bridge over what I was seeing. He tucked his shoes under his arm and lifted a hand, palm out. "It is not what, do not," I said. That came out sharper than anything else. Nia stepped between us, not touching either of us, but close enough that I caught the citrus scent of her lotion and the faint powder smell of my own laundry detergent on her sweater. She was fully dressed. So was he, mostly. I remember thinking how ordinary that looked and how much that hurt. I am not going to lie and pretend I handled that first 10 minutes like a saint. I did not. I asked ugly questions. I repeated myself. I laughed once in a way that scared even me. "In my house, Nia?" I kept saying, because my brain could not move past that part. She kept trying to explain, but her explanations came in pieces. We were talking. You were gone. It was stupid. Derek kept glancing at the front door like he was hoping for permission to disappear. I finally turned to him and said, "Put your shoes on and leave." He opened his mouth like he wanted to salvage his image, maybe say something about feelings or mistakes or how long this had been going on, but one look at me changed his mind. He sat on the bench by the door, pulled his shoes on with trembling hands, and left without tying them. I watched him jog through the drizzle to his car, shoulders hunched, socks darkening at the heel. Nia started crying as soon as the door shut. Not dramatic sobbing. Quiet crying, angry crying, the kind where tears come but the jaw stays set. I did not touch her. "How long?" I asked. She stared at the floorboards. Our son's science fair ribbon was still pinned to the bulletin board beside the pantry. The grocery list she wrote that morning was on the fridge. Eggs, almond milk, dish soap, cereal. Regular life everywhere I looked. "Since July," she whispered. My stomach dropped so fast I had to grip the back of a chair. It was October. July meant cookouts, church picnic, my sister's birthday, our anniversary dinner at that little seafood place on the harbor. July meant months of me living inside a sentence everybody else already knew. I did not cry then. People always imagine betrayal comes with immediate tears. Mine came later, in dumb places, like the auto parts aisle at Target and a red light on North Avenue. In that kitchen, what I felt first was disbelief, then heat, then a kind of ringing emptiness. I asked another question. "In this house more than once?" Nia covered her mouth. That was my answer. She nodded after a few seconds and said, "Only when you had overnight shifts or training." I had worked 2 emergency overnight repairs in August after that storm. My knees went weak. Nia tried to tell the story in a way that made her sound less cruel. She said it started with texts about her brother's insurance claim, because Derek knew somebody at an auto shop. She said she was lonely while I was doing double shifts. She said we had been missing each other for a while. Some of that was true. I had been working too much. The MTA yard had a stretch thin, and I came home smelling like grease and rain and stress. But hearing truth mixed with excuses made me angrier than a straight lie would have. I told her I needed space and walked out before I said something I could not take back. I did not take my car. I just walked hood up through our neighborhood in Hamilton, Laurelville with my hands jammed into my pockets, past a corner store with a lottery sign buzzing in the window, past a barber shop where old men argued over the Ravens and called every quarterback soft, past a bus stop where a woman in scrubs was eating crackers from a sandwich bag. Everything looked regular. I hated the world for being regular while my life felt like it had split. I ended up at my mother's church because it was open for a food pantry drive. New Hope Baptist sits on a hill and always smells like coffee, furniture polish, and old hymnals. My mother, Denise, was in the fellowship hall stacking canned yams into boxes and giving orders like a field general. She looked up, saw my face, and did not ask questions in front of people. She just handed me a case of bottled water and said, "Work." That is one of the reasons I love her. She knows shock needs a place to go. I made another decision there. I could have told the whole church exactly what happened, and let family gossip do what it does. In my family, news moves faster than weather. By sunset, 3 cousins would have called Derek, and 2 uncles would be looking for him. I wanted that for about 30 seconds. Then I pictured our son, Elijah, hearing a version of his mother's worst moment from somebody laughing in a church parking lot. I did not want my pain turning into entertainment. So I told my mother only after cleanup, in her car, with the windows fogging up. She listened without interrupting, hands tight on the steering wheel though the engine was off. When I said Derek's name, she closed her eyes and leaned back like somebody had hit her in the chest. "Lord," she said, not loud. Then she asked the first practical question, because that is who she is. "Where's Elijah?" He was with my sister, Kendra, in Columbia for the weekend because she had promised to take him to the Science Museum. Thank God. One mercy. My mother nodded and said, "You are not sleeping in that house tonight, if you can help it." I went back anyway. Not because I wanted to be noble, because I needed clothes for work, and because leaving without saying anything felt like surrendering my own space. Nia was sitting on the couch when I came in, still in the same jeans, mascara washed off, eyes swollen. She had moved my duffel bag by the stairs. "I am sorry" was the first thing she said. Not, "I made a mistake." Not, "It just happened." A real apology. Plain words. I wish I could say that softened me. It did not. I was too raw to sort sincerity from panic. We talked for almost 3 hours and got nowhere. I asked if she loved him. She said she did not know what that word meant anymore and hated herself while saying it. I asked if they had planned anything, leaving, telling family, any of it. She said no, and I believe her partly because she sounded embarrassed by how little she had thought through. Betrayal is often less glamorous than people imagine. A lot of it is carelessness. Weakness repeated. "You were supposed to be gone until Tuesday," she said once, and then immediately covered her mouth. That sentence hurt worse than catching them. You were supposed to be gone. It told me she had a schedule for my absence. She had a version of me in her head, reduced to shifts and train times and work boots by the door. I slept in Elijah's room that night on top of his comforter with the planets on it, staring at glow-in-the-dark stars we stuck to the ceiling when he was 8. Around 2 in the morning, I heard Nia moving around in our bedroom, opening drawers, closing them softly, like she was trying not to wake the dead. Sunday morning, I woke up before dawn and sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad. I am an electrician, not a lawyer, but when my head gets noisy, I write lists. I wrote 3 columns: facts, feelings, decisions. Under facts, I wrote what I knew. Affair since July. Derek, in our house. Elijah was unaware. Under feelings, I wrote everything ugly and confusing. Humiliated, furious, embarrassed. Still in love. Sick, wanting to punish. Not wanting to become cruel. Under decisions, I left blank for a while. Blank felt honest. Nia came downstairs in a robe and socks and saw me writing. "Can we talk?" she asked. "We have been talking," I said, and I hated how tired I sounded. She sat across from me and folded her hands. "I ended it 2 weeks ago," she said. I looked up so fast my neck popped. "Then why was he upstairs yesterday?" She started crying again, frustrated with herself. "He came over because I was trying to tell him we were done for real. He kept saying you were always gone, and I deserved somebody present. It was stupid. I panicked." That explanation fit her reaction at the door, and somehow that made everything worse. If she had been in a full fantasy, maybe I could have hated her cleanly. Instead, it was Messier. She had already been trying to back out. She had lied, but she was also cornered in a mess she made. Human beings are inconvenient that way. They are guilty and scared and sorry and selfish all at once. I asked if anybody else knew. She said her friend Monique knew. Something was off, but not who. Derek's brother probably knew. My chest tightened again. By noon, my sister dropped Elijah off. He came in with a giant gift shop bag and launched into a 10-minute explanation of a model train exhibit before he even noticed our faces. Elijah was 11 then, all elbows and questions, with my eyes and Nia's habit of biting his lip when he concentrated. He looked from me to his mother and asked, "Did something happen?" I made my third big decision right there. I could have told him the truth in anger. Instead, I said, "Grown-up problem. We are working on it. None of this is your fault." That line cost me something to say because I did not know yet if we were working on anything. But I knew enough not to hand my child a burden he could not carry. The next week turned into a strange split-screen life. I went to work, fixed a traction power issue near Mondawmin, laughed at a co-worker's joke, drank burnt coffee from a paper cup, and then came home to a wife who had broken my trust and was trying not to breathe too hard in the same room. We moved around each other politely, which is its own kind of grief. Nia asked for counseling by Tuesday. "I already called somebody," she said, sliding a card across the table like a peace offering. "Dr. Tasha Green, family therapist, Charles Village." I stared at the card for a long time. Part of me wanted to tear it up and tell her she should have called a therapist before she called Derek. Another part of me knew I needed a witness in the room, if only to keep me from turning every conversation into cross-examination. I told her yes, but with terms. No contact with Derek, full transparency, and she told her mother. She agreed immediately, too quickly, and then hesitated at the third term. "My mother will tell everybody," she said. "That is your problem," I answered. "I am done carrying your image." I was not trying to be cruel. I was drawing a line because I realized how much of our marriage had been me smoothing things over while she avoided discomfort. Nia liked harmony so much that she had conflict until it rotted. That was not the whole reason she cheated, but it was part of the machinery. By Wednesday evening, she had told her mother and called me shaking afterward. Her mother, Mrs. Laverne, came by Friday with a pound cake and red eyes. She is a retired postal supervisor with iron press slacks and a voice that can stop traffic. She hugged Elijah first, then me, then sat Nia down in our dining room and said, "You did this in your own home? Child, what kind of sense were you using?" I appreciated her for not making me the villain, so her daughter could feel less ashamed. Later, in the kitchen, she whispered to me, "You do not owe anybody a performance. Take your time deciding." Derek texted me 3 times that week. The first was, "Can we talk man to man?" The second was, "This got out of hand." The third was, "I am sorry." I did not answer any of them. Then he showed up at my job site near the bus depot on a Thursday, leaning against his truck like this was a barbershop conversation. I felt my pulse jump before he even spoke. "I am not here to fight," he said. "I just want to explain." I looked at the orange cones, the workers around us, and decided not to give him a scene. "You have 2 minutes," I said. He said all the predictable things in a serious voice. He had been going through it. He was not thinking straight. He and Nia connected. He never meant to disrespect me. That last one almost made me laugh in his face. Disrespect is exactly what it was. I asked him one question. "Did you come to my son's birthday cookout in August after being with my wife?" He looked down. That was enough. "Do not contact me again," I said. "If you do, we will have a different kind of conversation." Counseling was worse than I expected and better than I deserved. Dr. Green's office had a rattling radiator and a bowl of peppermints nobody ate. She wore bright scarves and listened with her whole face. In the first session, I sat with my arms crossed and answered questions like a witness on the stand. Nia cried, then got defensive, then cried again. Dr. Green stopped us both when we started performing. "Do not explain your character," she told Nia. "Explain your choices." Then she looked at me. "And you, stop speaking like you are already gone." I hated that she was right. I had been narrating my own exit because it felt safer than admitting I still wanted my wife to be somebody I could recognize. Over the next month, the story got clearer. Nia had not fallen helplessly into an affair. She had built it one small permission at a time. Private calls, coffee runs, complaining about me to somebody who enjoyed hearing it, then secrets, then physical intimacy, then routines. She said she felt invisible in our marriage and wanted to feel chosen. I told her I was in the same marriage, and I did not cheat. One of the unique things about our house was a hallway clock Nia's grandfather built from reclaimed wood. It chimed every hour, a soft 3-note sound that used to make me smile. During those weeks, I started measuring our conversations by those chimes. We would sit at the dining table after Elijah went to bed and talk until clocks sounded, then decide if we had enough in us for another hour. Some nights we made progress. Other nights we just bled on each other with words. Still, the clock kept us from pretending healing happened in one dramatic apology. Thanksgiving came and forced another decision. My family expected us at my mother's house in Randallstown, same as every year. Turkey, collards, dominoes, football too loud in the den. I could have canceled and hidden. I could have gone alone and left Nia to sit in the house with consequences. Instead, I asked Elijah what he wanted. "I want things to be normal for one day," he said, not looking up from his homework. So we went together. We rode in silence. My mother met us at the door and squeezed my hand once before letting everyone else act regular. It was not normal, but it was survivable. My cousin Tori stared too long at Nia. My Uncle Reggie hugged me like I had a broken bone. Nobody said Derek's name. In black families, silence can be mercy and pressure at the same time. Nia helped in the kitchen, washed dishes, and cried once in the bathroom where my sister found her and came back with red eyes of her own. Elijah played cards with the little kids and laughed so hard at one point that I had to step on the porch because hearing him happy almost broke me open. By December, we had rules. Shared calendar. Open phones if asked. Weekly counseling. No more, "I am fine" as a conversation stopper. We also had reality. Some mornings I looked at Nia making oatmeal and felt a rush of love so strong it scared me. And by lunch I would remember Derek in socks on my stairs and feel sick again. Trauma is rude like that. It does not arrive politely. It interrupts. Dr. Green told me trust after betrayal is less like gluing a vase and more like rebuilding a porch. New wood, new nails, same ground. In January, Nia wrote Derek a final no-contact letter in session while I sat there. She read it out loud. No blame shifting, no nostalgia, no maybe in another life foolishness, just accountability. "I harmed my husband, my son, and myself. Do not contact me again for any reason." She blocked him with Dr. Green watching. I did not clap or feel triumphant. I just breathed easier for the first time in months. Later that night, Nia asked if I wanted to see all the old messages before she deleted them. I said no. Another decision point. I said no because I already had enough images in my head. People think more information always helps. Sometimes it just feeds pain. I wanted facts, not torture. Instead, I asked for a timeline and honesty about any remaining contact. She gave me both. Did I believe every detail? Not at first. Trust is not a switch. But each time she told a hard truth without being dragged to it, a tiny part of me unclenched. At the same time, I started my own therapy alone because I realized I was trying to carry this like a private test of manhood. My therapist, Mr. Coleman, was a soft-spoken black man in his 60s who kept model trains on a shelf behind his desk. The first session, I told him I did not want to be one of those bitter men. He nodded and said, "Then do not become one. Bitterness is a habit, not a destiny." He helped me see something embarrassing. I had spent years acting like I solved everything. I paid bills, fixed toilets, coached Elijah's robotics team, and thought that meant intimacy would take care of itself. Nia's cheating was her decision. My emotional distance was still mine. Spring brought small changes that mattered. We repainted our bedroom because the old blue-gray walls started to feel haunted. Elijah picked a color. Actually, a warm clay tone that looked good in afternoon light. Nia moved her counseling books from the dining room to a shelf in the den so we could eat together without paperwork between us. I started coming home on time 2 nights a week, no matter what, unless somebody's train literally stopped running. We called those porch nights, sitting outside with ginger tea while neighbors walked dogs and kids chased each other with scooters. One evening in April, we were on the porch when Derek's truck rolled slowly down our block and turned the corner. He did not stop. He did not wave. But seeing that truck made my heart hammer. So hard I had to grip the arm of the chair. Nia noticed and went pale. "I did not tell him where we'd be," she said immediately. "I know," I answered, and I did know. Still, I was flooded. That was the night I finally admitted out loud that I was not just angry. I was ashamed. He made me feel stupid. I said, Nia did not defend herself. She did not ask me to move on. She just said, I know. I helped do that. It was one of the first times her apology landed all the way. Not because it fixed anything, but because it named the actual wound. Betrayal is not only heartbreak. It is humiliating. It is hearing your own life described in somebody else's side conversations and realizing you were not in the room. We sat there until the porch light flicked on automatically and mosquitoes started biting our ankles. Neither of us rushed to fill the silence. In June, Elijah graduated elementary school. At the ceremony in the school auditorium, he wore a little blue shirt and looked too grown all at once. Nia and I sat side by side on hard folding chairs while parents fanned themselves with programs. When Elijah's name was called, he looked for us in the crowd and grinned when he found us together. I cried then, finally, suddenly and hard. Nia squeezed my hand and I let her, not because everything was healed, because at that moment I wanted our son to feel solid ground under his feet, and so did she. That summer, my cousin group finally stopped tiptoeing and started choosing sides quietly. Derek stopped coming to family cookouts. My Aunt Rochelle sent me a long text about forgiveness and God's timing, and I answered with respect but no promise. I was. Learning boundaries are not announcements. They are patterns. I did not attend events where Derek would be. I did not ask for updates about him. I heard through Kendra that he lost his coaching role after parents complained about personal conduct. I felt no joy about that, just a tired sense of consequence arriving. By year 2, the crisis stage was over, and that is when the real work started. There were no more dramatic confessions, no emergency sessions, just ordinary life asking whether our changes were real. Nia got promoted to lead counselor at her school and celebrated by bringing home cupcakes from a bakery in Hampton. I surprised her with tulips and then resented myself for wondering if she had told anyone at work what she did. Healing can be petty. I started checking in instead of stewing. I am triggered and I do not know why, became a sentence in our house. We also fought about things that had nothing to do with the affair, which strangely felt healthy. We argued over Elijah getting a phone, over whether to lend her cousin money, over me leaving boots by the door after rain. Real marriage arguments. Dr. Green called that evidence of return. She also warned us not to romanticize survival. You staying together does not make the success, she said. Success is whether you become a more honest person. That line stayed with me. I repeated it to myself on nights I wanted a gold medal for not leaving. 2.5 years after that canceled trip, Nia asked me a question while we were cleaning out the basement. We were sorting old baby clothes, Christmas bins, and a broken lamp Elijah swore he could fix. Dust everywhere. She was holding a box of wedding photos when she said, "If the trip had not been canceled, would you ever have found out?" I sat on the concrete floor and thought about it. "Yes," I said eventually. "Maybe not that day, but your face gave you away." She nodded, then laughed through tears. I knew it. That answer mattered to me because it reminded me this story was not only about luck. It was also about attention. I had been sleepwalking in some parts of my life, but I still knew my wife well enough to hear fear in her hello. People like to say intuition is magic. Sometimes it is just years of noticing. The way she reached for the dish towel, the second mug, the forced smile, the upstairs floorboard. Truth leaves traces. You do not have to become a detective. You just have to stop explaining away every discomfort to keep peace. I should tell you plainly, plenty of marriages do not come back for what happened in mine, and that is not failure. There were months I should have left. There were nights Nia probably thought I would. We stayed because both of us changed in ways that could be measured, not promised. If she kept lying, hidden contact, blamed me for a choice, or rushed me to get over it, I would have gone. That boundary saved me. Staying was not the opposite of self-respect. It was a conditional agreement built one honest day at a time. The line from the title still comes back to me sometimes. You did not leave? I can hear it exactly. The pitch of it, the panic under it. For a while, that sentence lived in my body like an alarm. Eventually, it changed shape. It became the moment my life split before and after, yes, but it also became the moment illusion stopped running the house. We had to see ourselves clearly after that. Me as a provider who thought silence was strength. Nia was a conflict avoider who called secrecy coping until it became betrayal. Elijah is 14 now and taller than his mother. He still does robotics, and he has started asking the kind of questions teenagers ask when they suspect adults are complicated. We have not told him the full story, but we have told him enough to make our values plain. Honesty, accountability, repair where possible, boundaries where necessary. One night after dinner, he said, "I like that y'all actually talk now." I nearly choked on my rice. Kids notice everything. They do not need your secrets detailed. They need your patterns to make sense. Nia and I are not a fairy tale now. We are a marriage with scar tissue. Some days, I still feel grief for the version of us that existed before I walked back through that door with rain on my jacket. But scar tissue is not the same as an open wound. It is proof that something is closed. We have rituals now that keep us honest. Monthly money check-ins, no private friendships that live in shadows, and a Friday rule where we ask, "Anything unsaid this week?" It feels simple. It is not. It is maintenance, and maintenance is love too. Last fall, my supervisor rescheduled that same Philadelphia training. I almost laughed when the email came through. Nia saw the subject line on my phone and went quiet. "Do you want me not to go?" I asked. She shook her head and said, "No, I want to handle my own fear this time." That sentence told me more than any apology could. I took the trip. I sent pictures from the station because now we do not use normal things as evidence. We use them as a connection. When I got home, she was making crab soup and looked relieved, not startled. We have not seen Derek in years. I heard he moved out near Bowie and does private training with kids. I hope he is staying out of people's marriages. I do not spend much energy on him anymore, but I would be lying if I said the forgiveness part is complete. Forgiveness, for me, has looked less like a holy feeling and more like refusing to let old anger pick my schedule. I did not need to befriend him, bless him, or make a speech. I just needed to stop carrying him around as proof I was wounded. What still surprises me is that the deepest recovery was not from rage. It was from self-blame. For a long time, I replayed every overtime shift, every canceled date night, every moment I miss a cue. Mr. Coleman helped me separate responsibility from vulnerability. My long hours made us vulnerable. Her affair was still her choice. Those two things can sit in the same sentence without canceling each other out. Once I understood that, I stopped trying to solve the past like a wiring diagram. I could grieve it without assigning myself every broken part. If you want the clean, dramatic ending where I threw somebody out in the rain and delivered a perfect line, this is not that story. My real victory was quieter. It was keeping my son out of adult wreckage. It was learning to ask direct questions. It was not letting humiliation turn me cruel. It was hearing "you did not leave" and choosing not to explode just long enough to see exactly what was happening. That restraint did not make me weak. It gave me options. Sometimes the strongest move is the one that keeps you from becoming the worst version of yourself. On certain Saturdays, I still make coffee in my grandmother's chip church mug. Nia uses it now too, which used to irritate her. We joke that surviving marriage means drinking from ugly cups sometimes. The mug is one of those details people would not think matters, but it does to me. It was the first thing that looked wrong that morning. Now it reminds me of something else. Ordinary objects can hold both damage and repair. The same kitchen, the same counter, different truths. We earn that, and we guard it like folks who know what it costs. I keep the legal pad from that first morning in a drawer in the den. Facts, feelings, decisions. The paper is wrinkled from where my hand pressed too hard. I look at it maybe twice a year, usually when life gets busy and I feel myself slipping back into silence. It reminds me that pain makes people reach for certainty, but healing asks for honesty first. Facts before fantasy. Feelings without shame. Decisions made on purpose. That list did not save my marriage by itself, but it saved me from drifting while the biggest decision of my life was unfolding. So yes, my wife froze when I said the trip was canceled. She panicked. and I watched her panic. And for a long time, that was the image that defined everything. Now, years later, I remember another image too. Nia standing in a therapist's office, handshaking, telling the truth without bargaining. Me sitting there, furious and hurt, and still stay in the chair. Two people facing the mess instead of decorating it. It was not noble. It was not cinematic. It was work. But honest work changed the ending we were headed toward. If this story sounds slower than the revenge stories people like to tell, that is because real consequences usually are. They come in missed holidays, difficult conversations, therapy copays, awkward family dinners, and the long, unglamorous practice of becoming accountable. Or they come in divorce papers and separate lives. Both are consequences. The point is not punishment. The point is the truth. The morning my trip got canceled, I thought my life had shattered in one moment. Maybe it did. But shattered things can still teach you what they were made of and what you want to build next. If this story stayed with you, it is because it was never just about cheating. It was about what happens after the truth shows up. If you want more stories like this, real, layered, and told like a lived experience, like the video, share it with someone who would feel this. And subscribe right now. And in the comments, tell me the one line that hit you the hardest. The part one want you to remember is not Derek on the stairs. It is the choice after. I could have turned that kitchen into chaos. I could have told my son too much. I could have stayed without boundaries and called that love. Instead, the useful lesson was slower. Pay attention to reactions, protect children from adult fallout, and make decisions based on patterns, not promises. In this story, the real turning points were the legal pad, the counseling office, and that sentence Nia finally said without excuses. That is what accountability sounds like. The end.